Okay, let's begin then. It could be that people want to, having had the the late night, the having had the late night last night, which I had to excuse myself. I turned in early. It could be that they're thinking, I'll just have a little sleep now. Right, we're going to begin. Okay. This is the topic of the moment, AI. Okay, artificial intelligence. That's a term that dates from the 1950s, actually. And it builds on, well, for me, it was an extension of econometric techniques, which resulted in machine learning models. And we have got the panel of the day today, panel of the moment right now, on, it's entitled Leveraging Use of Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning to Explore Opportunities in Banking and Trading. Okay? And I personally am looking forward to hearing that, and I'm also looking forward to hearing about the application of large language models and the application of small language models. Apparently they hallucinate less than large language models. Don't know if that's true. But I'm not moderating this, so I'm going to hand over to the esteemed Mr. Mahmoud Khliefat, who is with London Stock Exchange Group, and he will be moderating this panel. Sir, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Murad. And thank you very much, folks, for joining. I want to start by also thanking our host, the ACI and the ICA, for this extremely well-planned, very generous, basically, conference. It's great to be here. And it's great to see everybody come in. So, yes, one of the very hottest topics, but I'm sure you're not here because of the hot topic. You're here because of this great panel that I have here. So thank you very much for joining, gentlemen. Shall we start by quick introductions? I am going to be moderating this. My name is Mahmoud Khliefat. I run the capital markets business at the London Stock Exchange. This is the business that empowers you on a daily basis with data, with analytics, with information, with insights and news when you do your jobs, when you make a trade, when you think about your next position and you're going about the trading. Let me start with you, Sylvanus, if you can introduce yourself.
I hope you can hear me. Okay, great. My name is Sylvanus Eneche. I work with a mid-sized Nigerian bank, traditional bank. We're about 80 years old. But interestingly, I mean, we saw the direction of the market and we brought into the market a digital offering about 5-6 years ago, which is called Alert. So a number of the conversations that I've heard this morning about the traditional bank, the digital banks, we saw that coming and we had to make a decision. So largely from the risk management side, and we've had a lot of talk about how you manage the risks that come with migrating to a digital platform and now the extensive use of AI in banking and finance.
Marc?
Good morning. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
You need to move closer. Closer to the mic?
Yeah. Nope. There we go. Morning, everyone. I'm Marc Esmiley. I'm from Microsoft, so hopefully you've heard of us, a little small company focusing on digital transformation. So I run the Financial Services Engineering Division. So essentially, our role is to look at the Microsoft products, partner with financial services customers, understand how they develop their products, co-build, and kind of take them to market with them. So it's really kind of through partnerships, and it's interesting to hear the previous talk as well, I think, about how partnerships are really forming. So thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. My name is John Ho. I head up the Financial Markets Legal for Standard Chartered, and we are a bank that is more than 150 years old with strong presence in Asia, Africa, and Middle East. And the use of AI is something that we're looking at very closely.
And we have Rani with us virtually. So Rani, do you want to introduce yourself? You are on mute. We can't hear you. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So there's a lag. Hello, everyone. Sorry I can't be with you physically. I'm a head of treasury and digital assets at Arab Bank Switzerland. Arab Bank Switzerland main businesses are commodity trade finance and private banking. So we're going to discuss how we apply that to all the three businesses that we have.
Thank you. So look, much have been said about AI, and much will be said about AI. I think we're still scratching the surface of what this can do. What this panel today is about the applicability and the applications of AI in the banking world, and the use cases, the adoption, and what do we see as challenges. So hopefully you'll get away with some examples, with some use cases where AI is being used on a daily basis in the banking system. But I'm going to start in a different way. So the audience has been here very patient, sitting in all of these panels. I'm going to start with you guys. By show of hands, can you tell me who here has used ChatGPT? Okay, so like 40% of the room. Now let's be honest about the next question. Who has used ChatGPT? And I know your boss might be sitting next to you or in the room, so no, you know, it's Saturday, it's off hours. Who in the room has been using ChatGPT for work? All right, that's a very strong show of hands in a banking industry. Right. So there you go, the adoption is there. Now, the last question for the audience is, do you think, who thinks that they have been using AI without knowing that they have been using AI? I would have thought more, but interesting. It's a very skeptical crowd. Thank you very much. Really appreciate this. This is very helpful. So, you know, with that, I'm going to turn to the banks actually on the panel. So, Sylvanus, we're going to start with you. Let's start with the why. Is this, as the old adage goes, like a solution waiting for a problem, or do we really have a genuine need? Why in banks we need artificial intelligence?
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. Indeed, the speed of transactions has changed. You need AI because of the sheer amount of data that you have today. Humans cannot exactly process it. And even if you could, you would need a whole length of time, a bank of analysts to do what a model can do in the click of a button. So indeed you need AI. But it doesn't take away from the fact that ultimately the decision to apply the analysis resides with the human beings. So definitely you need AI today because of the velocity of transactions, but ultimately decision making still resides with us, and that's where really the responsibility lies. Yeah.
John?
Just to add on to that, when we look at the why is AI being used, I think it's important to put in perspective that the use of AI, at least on the supervised AI, is not new. I think what has awoken the awareness to the members of the public especially is when ChatGPT was launched late 2022, people could use it, they feel it, they can see it for themselves, because the generative AI is an extension of AI that deep learning that allows for prompting to be converted to text, images, and the like. And that's where people start to think like, look, it's something new. But I think for those of us who have been in banking and looking at technology, at least for the supervised AI, that's not new. But obviously, with the Gen AI, with the ability to with prompting, ability to create potentially genuine content, and ability to basically think like a human, that's sort of awoken, take the genie out of the bottle in terms of looking at AI more widely. But I think for us in finance, it's important, but the why is we're looking at in two tracks. One, efficiency. What do I mean by that, for example, is for those of you in security services, one of the things we're grappling with is the manual nature of sending messages to banks, to reconcile payment statements, for example, MT599, which is very manual. It's many handoff. It's very slow. The ability to automate that has the ability to reduce operational risk, making faster turnaround time, and reduction in humans doing the work manually. That's what I mean by efficiency that is very real and tangible. The second aspect relates to productivity. And what do I mean by that productivity is One of the bugbear for many of us in the institution, it's about client onboarding. You need to collect your passport details for individuals, for corporates. You have a long list of documentation to collect. But if you have ability to automate the collection of data that is shared, obviously with permission basis through APIs and the like, you can actually scale your onboarding with a much reduced turnaround time, hence the productivity. And third is innovation. The ability to provide programmability, the ability to provide smart contracts in this, thus let institution like us think about how do we embed, open finance, embedded finance, where financial services could be offered in a real-time basis.
So what I'm hearing is velocity. I'm hearing toil reduction. So that's the efficiency play. And I'm hearing huge data. Often we hear about that explosion of data and then it's too overwhelming. Like there is so much news, there's so much noise that is coming to trading desks and to bankers. Rani, I'm going to turn to you on this one. So, all sounds really great. Do you feel we're moving on that emotional spectrum? From the, my God, this is going to basically make all of us out of jobs. And no, actually, this is improving my velocities. This is improving my efficiency. Sounds like a really good thing. Are we moving on that as banks? What is the sentiment?
Yes, I think we are moving on that because the whole idea is, as we said earlier, is about exploiting the huge data that we have. I mean, we're living in a data age, and the thing is we're exploiting maybe 10% or 15% of it. So having these models in machine learning, AI, which is nothing new, but it's also improving the efficiency and our ability to exploit all this data. I mean, on our side, what we talked about, why using AI, on our side is productivity, client engagement and client experience, and machine learning to build trading models. So that's what we're trying to do within Arab Bank Switzerland. We have a project to, for example, in terms of productivity, where in trade finance you have long contracts with a lot of stakeholders in it. So it's, and obviously that in trade finance, there's a lot of compliance issues around sanctions and all that. So the idea is that we're building a model that will go through all the contracts and will extract all the stakeholders so we can be more efficient in terms of compliance. In terms of client engagement, we are building and experimenting with this new tool that would produce automatically animation and videos of investment reports, of research, etc. So we can improve the client engagement and create a new experience for them. And again, also we created a new tool of AI curated news, and here it's more of the use of the NLP, the natural language preprocessing, that we take all the information that we can gather, put it, create a summary of the articles that we decide are the themes of the moment, and it's automatically the client will go and see all these articles without going out from our environment, which is the point because if you just put in links, he will go out and then you don't see what he's looking at and what he's doing. So that's one of the things. And on the model pricing models that we use in the trading, we're working on this long, short term models, building obviously on a huge data that we have, especially on cryptos, and to build a model for forecasting the prices. And the other one that we're working on is also to have a model to be able to that mix quantitative and qualitative data, enable to have a pricing model for digital art, NFTs.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn to Marc here, the techie on this panel. You've heard the end users, your customers, they are keen. They know exactly what their problems are. They know what they're trying to solve for, obviously. So what are you guys doing for them?
Well, I think everyone's hit the nail on the head here. This is not new stuff. This is just us making it more public and more available to people. And I think when we kind of boil it down to the crux of it, it's all about the data. It's all about the data that our customers are using and how they're using it and how they're using their end user data as well. And Microsoft, despite what some executives or previous executives may have thought, are not financial services specialists. We're tech specialists. And that's why we look to this room and look to partnerships, like for instance, recent partnership we announced with the London Stock Exchange Group about using their knowledge on our technology and kind of boiling it down to something very simple like that. And when we look at AI, AI is a massive umbrella of technology. We've already talked about it here. NLP, computer vision, large language models, small language models, and the list goes on with many more acronyms. But it's the idea of kind of understanding where that technology is right for you as a customer and where it's right for your end users as well. And fundamentally, the way when we look at these large knowledge graphs that people are starting to build, we have to be really careful about how we build those models. Because if we're using incorrect data or a kind of fixed set of data, well, if we're doing this for market risk analysis, of which is a large use case we're doing right now, what happens if we use the wrong data and we make a wrong recommendation? Who's liable for that? Is it the technology? Is it the customer giving the wrong information? Or is it the bank actually providing that as a service? So this whole direction of ethical AI starts to come into it. We've talked a lot about ESG throughout this conference. What if we could give market analysts a clear text interface to say, hey, the S&P 500 or the FTSE 250, what customer or what company is scored on their flood rating risking on their ESG score a 6 over the last 10 years? Imagine the amount of analyst time to kind of go through, sift through that data. But if we could do that, give that informed decision, and again, I think you perfectly kind of categorized it, give it to the human in the room, and make them aware of that, empower them, and that's our kind of key emotion, empowering the individuals, empowering the organizations. And it's not really about replacing jobs, it's about reskilling jobs. So that would be...
Thank you, that's very helpful. So before I move on, I want to go back again across all of you. The audience are traders, treasury professionals, bankers. They need specific examples. Can I go across and tell me about one specific, very specific use case or example of where AI is being used today within your organization or you're building it? So I'm going to start with you, John.
Yeah, I think AI is used in a number of places, but one example we're looking at very closely, what excites us is, especially I mentioned about onboarding, is the ability for AI using in a measured way to transform the client life cycle experience. What I mean by that is not just about, able to understand what client needs from a news perspective, but also making sure that client needs are answered. And what do I mean by that is, we are looking at a sort of a trial for AI ability to create contract management using AI with data being inputted using standardized templates, where clients sees it through a private cloud. They also know their documents are there. When they do another transactions, they don't need to have provision of the same documents again in terms of corporate informations. All the informations are pulled through a private on-prem. And this is not something that is not there. The technology is available. The question is, how do we do it in a way that meet existing laws? Because we have laws relating to data sovereignty, we have laws relating to data confidentiality, and the issue that we're trying to do is, yes, technology is one aspect, but we're going to ensure that it fits within the regulatory framework and how banks operate.
Sylvanus? Example that excites you.
Yeah, great. Can you hear me? All right, great. For my bank, which is largely a commercial bank, one particular use case is in the area of fraud management. So there is a particular solution we use that gathers data from about 180 data points, puts that all together and scores a risk on transactions, on customers. So you can do a credit score, and you can also do a risk score for specific transactions. Also, that part of that whole package of solution is that it also does facial recognition. So yes, like John said, there are privacy concerns, but these are things that you need to be aware of. Now, just to extend that a bit, one of the key issues with using AI is being able to explain what exactly it is doing behind the scenes. Because at the end of the day, the decisions you take, you need to explain to your regulators, and you also need to ensure that it is legally and ethically correct. Because like I said, most of us are regulated institutions, so you would need to be able to explain to your regulator. And I think that's one area that is of concern, especially to risk managers. We are not tech people, but you need to be able to understand what it is exactly that this tool has done for you.
You know this is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You know this is a banking panel when the risk manager basically takes us to the risks. So let's pause on that for a second. Because this is key, the two examples you just gave me. And in contrast with what we're hearing, or we heard previously this morning about the banking industry and its adoption of this, you're talking about AI helping you do your compliance, do your customer satisfaction or understanding. So it is an enabler even in the most regulated use cases. And I think, I'm the moderator, I shouldn't be speaking too much, but this is a very, very strong point here, is that it's not doom and gloom. This is not like something we should fear. This is helping the banks do their job. I'm going to turn to the risks because you got us there. And actually, I'm going to start with you, Marc. What are you hearing? What is the skepticism? Where are the challenges in banks adopting more of AI in their banking workflows?
So it's all about where my data's going. If I roll back the clock 20 years ago, and I came to individuals in this room and said, hey, I've got this great service, and I want you to host, I want you to turn off your servers that are locked away in your server room, and I want you to host your data with us. You would have laughed me out the room. It just wouldn't have been an option. Because again, it was about moving your data, that kind of releasing of that function, that operational function, that control within your business. Then we kind of moved obviously into virtualization, and now obviously with cloud, with a lot of cloud service providers, in the mix. I see the same models happening and same conversations happening with artificial intelligence. Where's my data going? Who has access to it? How can I control it? How can I query it? What if I get audited? What happens then? And that's why we're starting to, even actually within Microsoft, we block pretty much the open portal access for ChatGPT, because that information is going out into the World Wide Web, and even though we're a big investor of that organization, of OpenAI, it's still other elements and other parties having access to that data. So we've got our own in-house version of that, which is essentially a walled-off garden. And that's exactly the same as we're doing for customers, because quite rightly, you don't want running, you don't want to upload your data to a portal and then say, what should I do based on this information? Now, it's great that it's going to give you an answer, but where's that data gone? Who's controlling it? Is it going to come back to bite you later on? So fundamentally, it's really about that control, and that's why we are partnering as well with a lot of the regulators across the globe and understanding what policies are kind of being put in, hopefully actually inputting to some of them as well, so that we can help shape that. And that's not just the Microsoft thing, that is a technology conversation. There's a technology board that's been formed essentially around how we use artificial intelligence within financial services, and also other organizations as well, industries like government. Government is obviously a very kind of key party as well, and similar concerns as well.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to you, Rani. You heard Marc here. Microsoft is putting rail guards on who's using the data, who owns the data, how the data is processed, all of that governance. Sounds like really encouraging. What is the view from your side? Are you getting comfort from when you hear a giant like Microsoft, a leader in the tech industry, say this?
I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, the main topic and the challenge here, especially for Swiss banks, as you know, with their attachment to confidentiality, is how we control and organize the data. And starting from that, if we have a reliable system and confidentiality and security, then we can build on top of it anything we want. But today, I mean, that explains also why, I mean, from the discussion we had, even what I presented, is that we're working in silos because we're not comfortable enough to gather all the data, put it in the same place, and try to build something on it in different ways. I think this is the major challenge that we're facing, especially banks, and we need to solve that very quickly in order to be able to really build the most efficiently all these AI models or machine learning models that we need to have for the future.
Thank you. So with that in mind, Sylvanus, you spoke, and Rani speaking about like models, and I mean, these are complicated things. You spoke about explainability. First of all, to who you're explaining this, and secondly, especially with the regulator, do you feel it's actually landing? Do you feel people are listening and agreeing with you?
Okay, great. So really, it's twofold. I think it's a double-pronged answer to that question. The first thing is, the tech guys bring up these models. You, as the traditional bank, the operator, you need to understand what it is doing, because essentially, like we said earlier on, it is improving your efficiency, allowing you to do things that you used to do manually in an automated and faster manner. So you need to be able to understand what the model is about and also query it. Again, the point is you need to be able to carry your regulator along. If you don't understand it, you can't explain it, you cannot engage your regulator. I think it's important that at fora such as this, and even as you develop, you are able to carry your regulator along, you are able to carry the risk managers along so that they understand it, because traditionally this comes from the product area, they understand the product, the tech guys build the product, and then you hit a brick wall when you meet risk managers and they tell you, no, this is not what we're going to do, because they don't fully understand it. And you need that team building, you need that understanding across board in your organization. Yeah.
Gertrude, to you, what do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things to bear in mind is that when people talk about Gen AI, especially with large institution or regulated institution, we're not scraping data from the internet. As Marc mentioned, a lot of these done within the private cloud or within the on-prem with using data that's already available. What we're doing, obviously we mentioned about productivity, we also mentioned about innovation, we mentioned about efficiency, and also value creation. The value creation is important because it's also about what value are you creating out of it. There's a few things that on the front office side people are looking at: trading strategies, new ideas, better client experience with understanding what client needs in real time, news flash that is customized to clients in terms of their business needs and wants. These are not exhaustive, but these are some of the things that's out there. But having said that, the risks out there is real, and I think one of the things we need to look at is it's about putting safeguards into this to address the risks. So we talked earlier about explainability, which is governance risks. We only need to look at data risks, rubbish in or rubbish out. The data has to be accurate and verified. We also need to put ethics to it, making sure that ethical use of AI in a manner that is meets the transparency, equality, fairness are embedded in it. So the approaches we're seeing globally is, unfortunately, there's no universal regulatory approach with AI at the moment. What we're seeing, the most latest report from OECD is there are 9 different approaches. Unfortunately, with the explosion of AI, different regulators have different approaches. There is an attempt at the G7 to actually come up with some convergence, because the last thing we want is a fragmented approach with not just data, use of AI, which will be very difficult for the adoption of AI. Imagine that one country has a different adoption of AI, different standards, different regulations, you can't scale, right? So we are in this journey, but what I'm saying is, it's some of the use of AI has to be done in a prudent, risk-managed, basis in order for these to be adopted.
In the time left, I want to turn to you, Marc. Hallucination has been talked about. Tell us more and tell us basically, can we put safeguards and railguards basically on hallucination? Where do you see that? How do you see that being managed?
I mean, so in short, yes, I think, yeah. And I think, in all honesty, conversations like these, close conversations with the regulators is where we kind of need to get to. It's having that proper process and policy that we need to start to develop and agree upon. A unified approach, I think, as John said, I think this is super key. Actually, next week we're in kind of a couple of different countries speaking with the regulators about AI. As fun as that sounds, it is definitely needed, because the more white papers that we start to generate, the more unified understanding that we have. And I think that's the key aspect, is the skilling and understanding of not just the institutes, but also the end users as well, and within those organizations. I'm sure a lot of people now within their organizations have to do some kind of, you've always had to do some kind of fair use policy of data. I'm sure AI is going to slowly start to slip into that training now to actually say that you know what to use, how to use data, where to use it as well. So overall, I think what we're doing here is the early journey of it, but it's the right start.
Rani, do you fear, you're heading a treasury desk, so do you fear hallucination? Do you fear, for example, this model is going to create the next financial crisis all of a sudden somewhere in the world? What are your thoughts? Or no, you see it like business as usual?
Well, for me, it's business as usual. But yes, if we have rogue players just trying to promote models like that without any control, then we have issues. But I think, as it said, we have a close collaboration with the regulators, and whatever we do, we need to explain it, and we need to be able to understand how it's working. So it's about that at the end of the day.
And do you feel the regulators are listening?
Yeah, I think they are very curious. They want to learn more. There's a huge learning curve depending on, how regulators are in this journey. It's kind of a couple of takeaways here, right? AI is the power to unleash greater powers. We just talk about whether it's innovation, productivity, automation. With great power comes greater responsibility, not just on the private sector side, but also on the public sector side, to sort of work together, right? So AI, especially Gen AI, had light the path forward. But it's up to us on both sides, public and private sector, collaborate to address some of the risks and also harness the innovation and the sort of ethical standards so that this is a sustainable way forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to turn to the audience. They've been very patient listening to us speak. So any questions from the audience?
Guys, you have to ask quickly. I'm back again. Mahmoud is the boss of my boss. Did I miss a layer? Come on, yalla. Saloni, Mo, I'm coming to you. You wrote a book on the matter. You're going to ask.
Thank you, dear. Yeah, so we've spoken a lot about regulators. I have just two simple questions. One, AI model is as good as how the model has been defined. So what are the controls at the definition side before it's run through? And the second part of the question is, where does customer figure in this? Because a lot of the customer's data is going into this modeling. So does the customer know that their data is going, and how do you ensure that they're kept informed?
I'm going to talk to you on this one.
Yeah, I'll take that one. You'll even see terms and conditions changing, I think, throughout everything. Who has LinkedIn here? Nobody has LinkedIn here. Does anyone use LinkedIn in the room? 3 people. I don't think that's right. Yeah, okay.
Guys, LinkedIn.com, the
Four
blue
and a-
one.
four and a half.
Here we go.
Okay, 4.5 people use LinkedIn in the room. That's good. So look at the T's and C's of that. look at kind of how that information is being used. There's a lot of T's and C's that are in there. And we're even seeing data providers, when they're giving that information, actually some of them are putting clauses in there that they don't want that data to be used to train models. So they've caught on pretty quick to that because that's their IP, and they want to make sure that they have, you know, the long run in the game. So I think it really kind of comes down to those controls. And again, we need to be very careful about what we're actually signing up to. It's the, you know, classic read the T's and C's, but in all honesty, how our data is being used is really key. And I think that's from an individual perspective and an organization's perspective as well. And there is a blurred line there, but they will come closer and closer as time goes on, I think.
If I may, I have another take as well on this and completely agree with you. Look at one of the things we're doing together, for instance. Every one of you in this room use inflation rates. You look at rates, you look at the news, you look at fundamentals of a company on your workstations. One of the things we're doing is actually using AI to improve the integrity of that data on our platforms, improve the efficiency, and improve the time to market. Previously, you had, you know, humans looking into the annual reports and picking up the data. Now, can we get to a point where AI is doing that, or checking the integrity of that data to get it closer to you? Like a bond has been issued. Can we get that bond closer to the market, faster to the market, with better integrity of the data? That is the kind of AI we're using. So to your point, yes, there is the privacy, the T's and C's, but also there is the fact that actually you could trust the data that you have on the platforms, on the data platforms, a lot more than you did 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. So that's another take of how AI is helping that data integrity. Other questions? We need, yeah, please.
Thank you for the great insight and use cases for to use AI. So I will flip it the other way around. Is there any use case where AI will have limited benefit in banking?
As in negative?
Not negative, but like where we should not spend too much resources to explore use cases because you think the benefit will be limited, if there are any.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to send you virtually. Rani, what do you think?
Thank you. Well, I guess, I mean, here in private banking is, and commodity trade finance is still a person business. So you can't replace the personal relationship with your clients, either in private banking or the traders you're dealing with in commodity trade finance. So I think for us here, I don't think we will spend, we will take a lot of time exploring AI in this area. However, as I said before, improving the customer experience and interaction with the bank and engagement in terms of digital banking, that's important, yes.
Thank you. There's John, do you want
just want to add, right, very quickly, where we say that the use case is not relevant, is I think it's where accuracy and reliability is key, like provision of client advice, trading. We will not completely rely on AI without human in the loop. So AI is meant as an augmentation as opposed to replacement of human decision, especially where decisions are key and responsibility, accountability still lies with the organization that makes the decision.
Thank you. There's another question there in the audience.
Frank based on ACI France. Do you already have experience of attempt to corrupt IA from outside, because there is also a risk there in your, I think especially about Microsoft?
Yes, in summary. I mean, there's interesting guardrails that we put on the AI models themselves as well, because believe it or not, it will try and break its bounds and break its boundaries. We saw a recent case example of taking some chains off in a controlled environment and seeing if it could break a CAPTCHA tick box to say if you were a human or not. It managed to fool 6 humans to tick the box for it and kind of take its model to the kind of next generation. And that was essentially to make a purchase of new compute so it could expand its models even further. So not only do we just have, we have to be careful with the actual, the intelligence itself, but yeah, also people injecting false data, you know, negatives into fundamentally the core structures where it would be very easy to miss, but then would affect the outcome of that decision. And that's where, you know, these guardrails are not only from a technology perspective, but also from a people and process. And that's always where we've, you know, technology has found the barrier there. Technology works, great, but does it work with the people in the process in that organization? Not really. So how do we kind of fill that, you know, that bridge that gap and that delta? So yeah, in summary, yes.
One or two more questions?
It's over there. I have one more.
We have 2 minutes, guys.
Okay, so maybe you can take two more questions.
That's more from LSEG. We're rocking it. Yes.
Hi, Tessa Walsh from LSEG. I have a couple of questions, actually. Could you talk to us about the distinction between data and IP, which I think is quite interesting? If organizations are creating private clouds, what does that mean for the public versions of artificial intelligence? And then secondly, question for Marc, what do you see as the best use cases for ESG given the absolute mountain of data that's going to be generated by all of the disclosure regulations? Thanks.
Should we start with the ESG one with you, Sylvanus? Like,
I think
or
regarding who owns the IP, the data ultimately belongs to the customer, right? That privacy, and that's why there are significant privacy concerns. But the IP itself belongs to the organization that has aggregated that data. Now, if you choose to share that with somebody that has created a model, of course, there have to be, should I say, it has to be ring-fenced, how that data can be used, and ultimately what it is used for. So these are some of the concerns that clearly, for instance, in my country, Nigeria, you are not allowed to store that data outside of the geographical location. These are concerns that people are grappling with. For the longest time, we were not even allowed to migrate to the cloud. But that has been worked through now. But even then, there have to be certain guardrails. But I think it's more of a legal question, so maybe I'll allow John to speak to it if there are any issues around it.
Yeah, I think the issue of data is something that is obviously a hot topic, but what we can look at recent case law, right? For example, many of the copyright acts still envisage a human in the loop in owning or creating data. If you have a generative AI that creates data without any human in the loop, some case law have actually evidence that there is no copyright to the person who just press a button or prompt to create a generative AI text or image. So I think that's something to bear in mind. The other thing is for in-house generation of IP, typically that's covered under employment contracts and governance and where IP sits and rests. So then there's no one short answer to all, but the question is depends on the contract clause, depending on how AI, the output is generated.
So can I just add some elements to that as well? So I think, so even like our partnership with LSEG, you own the data, we don't. We don't have access to the data. Even though it's running on our platform, we still can't access it. There's certain wall guarding that's kind of done there. I think on the ESG perspective, and this is not unique, I think, to ESG, but there's only so many people that really understand it in depth, and there's only so many data scientists as well that we can apply, throughout the world that have that skill set. And I think that's, when we look at the subject matter experts, there's only so many that we can actually kind of get in a room physically, virtually, to actually understand if the models are outputting the right structure of information, the right detail of information, and also people to actually input into those models to help build them. So I think this is going to be it's not going to be a unique challenge that we see forming. It's going to be a challenge that we have to address somehow, is the subject matter experts for these certain areas. How do we get them skilled enough, partnered with the technology individuals to actually start to build that sort of structure and that sort of knowledge graph to make use of, essentially, within your organizations?
Thank you, Marc. I would have loved to take more questions, but I'm being ushered off the stage. So I would want to thank you very much. Thank you for the panel. Really appreciate you guys as well coming around and being here. And I appreciate your insights. Thanks for the audience for being patient with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is this not working? Thank you very much, Mahmoud. That's fantastic. Love that, guys. Right? Okay. So, yeah, I'm afraid I have to usher you off. I'm sorry, gents. I've got to usher you off.